There is nothing more effective in seduction than making the seduced think that they are the ones doing the seducing. What if you can make them do what you want them to without their realizing it? What if they think they are in control? That is the power of indirection, and no seducer can work his or her magic without it. Hi, welcome. If you're new here, I am Alexandria Salinas, and I am dissecting part 2 of the Art of Seduction, the how-to process, how to seduce. I've tried to be in book clubs before. Nobody wants to read what I want to read, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bring this online. Real quick, for legal reasons, I am not reading this book word for word. I'm not summarizing every paragraph. I'm pulling ideas, interpreting them, and overall relating them to my own life. If you want the full experience, buy the book. It's the #1 book I recommend to everyone. And before there's any people who just want to complain, this book does not make you manipulative. This book makes you aware. This book helps you tap into your better and higher self. Let's get into it. This chapter really challenged the way that I think about seduction, because when we hear the word seduction, we usually think of quick intensity, love at first sight, these big gestures, and even this like fast, intense chemistry. Yes, there are people who can do just that. You know, the Sirens and the Casanovas of the world, people whose personality is just leading with desire. But what Robert Greene shows here in this book, and mainly in this chapter, those are not the most effective or even sustainable forms of seduction. The most powerful forms of seduction typically start off a lot quieter. So a friendship, there has to be this like comfort and safety to begin with. And that can be uncomfortable to hear, especially if you're someone who just comes off kind of strong at first, which like that was literally me all of my life. There was this way too long of an era where I thought that being your best self meant that you had to be this explosive, high energy, out there person, just dramatic and expressive. Although I am someone who is pretty dramatic and expressive, I would overdo it in a way that it wasn't even making me comfortable. I thought that being louder and a lot more animated than what I would normally be was how people were going to be drawn to me. But y'all, if I'm being so freaking for real, that was just the most insecure version of me. I wasn't magnetic. I was trying to convince people that I was, but I wasn't. And this chapter really made me realize something so important in seduction. Not only was I just bad at seducing, I was literally being an anti-seducer. I would always feel silence instead of letting it breathe. I always over-explained instead of allowing curiosity to build. I was chasing rather than allowing space. But then once I started getting really into self-development and reading this book, because my self-development journey started with me reading this book, I just stopped forcing myself to be extroverted all of the freaking time. I let myself be quieter, more observant, and more selective about my time, my energy, who I'm gonna let in. And ironically, that is when I started getting along with people more. Not even in seduction, but friendship even. And that's what this chapter is quite literally about. Starting as a friend is not weak. It's not boring. It's not even putting yourself in a friend zone. It's actually pretty freaking strategic. When you're starting off as a friend, you're doing a few powerful things at once. You're first gathering information. You're figuring out who this person even is rather than imagining who they can be. The second thing you're doing is you're lowering defenses. Most people don't resist the idea of befriending someone. People actually tend to relax into it. Third, you're buying time. Time creates, that sense of familiarity, which then creates the trust that's needed. And the most important thing is that you can get to decide if you even like them, if you want to continue with this journey, this process. So many of us get seduced by our own fantasies before we've even met someone properly, which Guilty. Friendship is what grounds you in the reality. And this called me out so bad, you guys, because I've had too many times where I've had the opportunity to build something so real. Like, I could have started off as like the friends, build that mutual trust, mutual interest, curiosity, even attraction, but I would just always come off way too freaking strong. I would confess feelings way too early. I would just push the emotional intimacy. And sometimes like I could have, oh gosh, it was just so bad. I would get so awkward, which just made the entire situation terribly awkward. And sometimes things would work out, but it wouldn't work out in a seductive way, but more of just like, oh, a hookup, you know? And just to be so freaking for real right now, I did not grow up with a dad. My dad passed away when I was 1, so I've always struggled with connecting with men emotionally or in general, honestly. So whenever I liked a guy, I just didn't know how to approach it. And it's honestly something that I'm still navigating right now, just the approaching part. I don't really think about dating at all right now. I'm way too focused on other things. But the reason why I'm so drawn to seduction is because every relationship that you have has to do with seduction. It's not always about, sex or that type of intimacy. There is always going to be a certain type of intimacy in any relationship that you have. Platonic, family, whatever. Even business related, especially business related. But yeah, connecting with men, navigating the love scene has always been something that I still need to work on a little more. I have gotten a lot better. Where I fell short before, I didn't know how to sit with the tension without trying to immediately solve it. I've gotten a lot better at that, so we're upgrading. One of the most important things that this chapter talks about is that people resist feeling controlled, but they love to feel in control. So just, in other words, the most effective part of seduction is when you allow the person that's really being seduced to think that they are doing the seducing. How do you do that? You give them space. You do not crowd the moment. You let curiosity do the work. Y'all, ever since I started taking all of this advice, all of these ideas, and implemented that into my own life, I saw such a shift. It's freaking crazy. Well, it's also just, it's plain human psychology. That's how humans work. You don't even need to read a book about pure seduction. Just read about human psychology, understand what humans really respond to, ask yourself what you would respond to even, and go from there. Indirection is not about manipulation. It's about patience and understanding that growth happens when there are gaps. This chapter also made me think about, that question of, can men and women be friends? My take right now, and my opinion may evolve. Yes, I do think men and women can be friends, but to a certain point. Because the moment things become even slightly seductive, whether if it's a look, a comment that lands a certain way, attention that just feels charged, that is when dynamics shift. And that's not bad, it's human. What matters here is awareness. This is where the next episode is going to come into play. Because once friendship is there, once there's comfort, once the tension is quietly present, that is when mixed signals enter the picture. Okay, and if you made it this far, I want y'all to try something this week. Not homework in a school way, just a self-experiment. If you want to call it homework, then it's homework. For the next week, practice restraint. If there is someone you are interested in, romantically, socially, even professionally, restrain yourself. Don't push the connection forward. Don't over text, don't over explain, don't even overperform. Notice the times where you want to reach out and just pause and see what happens. Take note of what happens when you don't give in to any of the pressure that you want to give into. But if there's no one specific in your life, then just do it with yourself. Notice the times where you are seeking validation, pull yourself back slightly, and just sit with that discomfort. You are not playing games here. That's a really important thing to distinguish. You're just seeing where your power is leaking. Okay, you guys, I really would love to hear what stood out to you. Comment your takeaways. Comment if you've experienced something where it was a friendship and it turned into something more. Even if you disagree, it's totally okay. I just want this to be a conversation. If you're reading along with me, tell me where you are in the book. The next episode is about sending mixed signals. And y'all, it's gonna be so interesting. Okay, remember, it is a good day to have a good day if you want a good day. Bye.